at the University of Nigeria. At the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I'm very happy and delighted to be here for this experience, and I must say thank you very much to all of you for having me, and many thanks, most especially to Oga Sami Wejiya for finding me worthy for this exercise. I am deeply grateful. So this session would be very interactive. I know it's always interactive, but there may be times when I would require feedback on the spot from one or two individuals before progressing. As a matter of fact, yeah. Okay. As a matter of fact, it's how I want us to start, because I'm going to be starting with a question that I would need one, two, or three volunteers to attempt to respond to. And that question is, why do you think the media exists? What purpose does the media exist to serve? If I'd like maybe one or two respondents to this question. There's a reason why I'm asking, so that it can flow organically. So can anyone, one, two persons, try to tell me why they think the media exists in the first place? What purpose the media exists to serve?
Okay, Delight, you raised your hand, so you may unmute your mic and speak.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we have the media is to get accurate and well-informed information, not just speculative ones. And so I feel the media is there so that the government will be able to make sure that citizens are getting information as it ought to be, not based on speculation, news that are not factual, I mean to say.
All right, thank you very much, Delight. Anybody else?
Peace, you may unmute your mic and speak.
All right, good morning, Mr. Kosi.
Morning, Peace.
All right, okay. Personally, I think the media exists basically to perform three functions. One is to give accurate news, two, to educate, and also to entertain the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peace. Just one more person, then we move on.
Moses, you may unmute your mic and speak.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. I think media exists in order to disseminate information to the masses. That is from there we have what we call mass media, because everybody is not opportune to get information at maybe at the same time. So that is why media is there, to make sure people get information at this almost at the same time, at the right time, and everything. And also media is there, exists to entertain, to inform us, and equally to educate us. So that is my own understanding. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Moses. Thank you, Delight. Thank you, Peace. All of you have responded well. Delight says it's for accurate information. Talked about the government, and yes, of course, today, as has been for decades now, there's also private media. Peace talked about information, education, and entertainment, and Moses pretty much echoed the thoughts. Yeah, especially as it has to do with information. So you are all very correct. A lot of answers to this, but you've all touched on the fundamentals. Basically, to inform, to stimulate thoughts and drive conversation, and importantly, to entertain. And if you are one to view things through a moral compass, the media also has a responsibility to drive society towards a certain direction. Media has a responsibility to promote the best by way of culture, norms, mores, morals, these kinds of things. So I chose this topic. Everyone else has the same information. What are you doing with yours? Because the landscape has changed. Now, decades ago, I mean, radio stations, television stations, media houses, mass media in general was not as proliferated as you find today. I mean, back in the 1930s, when the colonial government first introduced radio, to the early 60s, when the expansion started, there were a handful of media houses in places like Lagos, Ibadan, Sokoto, just few and far in between. So basically, information technology, communication technology was not as improved and as available as they are today. What this meant at the time was that to know, for instance, that Deborah Samuel or Deborah Yusuf was lynched in Sokoto yesterday by some extremists, or that Tottenham Hotspur beat Arsenal Football Club 3-0 yesterday, you had to wait to hear it on a platform, on radio or on television, or you had to wait to read it when the fine print is published. The internet had not become a big thing as it is today. To pack it all in, the summary of all that I've been saying so far is that decades ago, up until a few years ago, media outlets were smaller in number and information was more restricted. Therefore, back in the day, having the news already was an attractive content. People would want to know what is happening in the first instance by tuning in to listen to you. But fast forward to today, the landscape has changed. Radio stations, television stations, etc., are in their hundreds, even thousands. Print media as well. The biggest game changer, perhaps, is the internet, which has for long been in existence, but today ever more improved, faster and more accessible, even to the man in the thickest part of my village, right? So in the old days, before you could find out what, for instance, Richard Moffett Damijo was doing behind closed doors with Liz Benson, as would be sensationalized in the tabloids, then you had to wait patiently until the next edition of Hints magazine is published, right? That's how you would know. But today, every little scandal is already popping up on the screen of your smartphone. Linda Ikeji has it. All the blogs have it. Twitter and Instagram, it's all there on Facebook. Before, this is obviously for comic relief, but before Yule Dochie even finds out that he has a son with another woman, you already know because Gislover or some blogger has already carried the news. So the landscape has changed. All you have to, in the old days, you had to wait for your brother who had gone to the Sharks Stadium to watch Dolphins or Sharks Football Club of Port Harcourt to come back home so that you can ask and say, brother, what's waiting them play? What's the score line? But all you have to do today, or you can just by pressing a few buttons on your phone know what the score line is for a football match taking place in London, in Berlin, in Madrid, in Rome, anywhere in the world, the latest tennis score, you just by pressing a few buttons on your phone. So things have changed from what it used to be to what it is now. Before that, your 3 o'clock show in the afternoon on radio, where you hope to inform your listener that Rihanna is pregnant for ASAP Rocky. Princess at Rumola already knows. So you ask yourself then, what new or interesting thing will she or he or she, or will she, I mean, since we're talking about Princess, tune in to listen to you for? If all you have to say to her is that Rihanna is pregnant for A$AP Rocky. She has seen it on her phone. It's been trending on Twitter all day. Is that why she would tune her radio set to listen to you by 3 p.m. so that you tell her again that Rihanna is pregnant, something she already even knew because she possibly was awake before you and saw the information before you, the broadcaster. So as a broadcaster, life in everyday society, all the motion in all sectors of society, it often supply the origin of our talking points. But if we have now established from our ongoing conversation that the information is out there ever more today than ever and readily accessible to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, it then becomes very important what you do with the information that you have. What magic can you create from a generic event, a generic set of information, right? Governor Nyesom Wike is contesting for presidency. Nigeria Info knows, Classic FM knows, Today FM knows, everybody knows. But what do you do with yours? Now, when we look at the ratings, there's something called ratings where radio stations try to measure who listens, who has more listenership, percentage of the market share at every point in time. You often see, like in Port Harcourt, they often list the top 10. But there are more than 10 radio stations in Port Harcourt. If you use the radio applications that allows you to listen to even radio stations thousands of kilometers away from here in other continents, in other languages and all, you find that the options are endless. So why would someone choose to listen to you and not the other person? Now, I have evolved over time from several kinds of shows and programs on radio in my relatively short time in the industry. So, but at this point in time, and I'm loving it too, I am mostly a sports broadcast journalist. So some of the examples I'll be giving here on forth will somehow be tilted towards sports, but I'll do my very best to explain it in ways that those who are not sports enthusiasts will also follow. So let's say there are 30 radio stations in Port Harcourt. Every radio station has a sports team, sports journalists, broadcasters, they're all there. They have sports shows, right? So there are 30 sports shows, hypothetically speaking. Now, just a few days ago, the national team handler at this time, there is an assistant, but there is no coach. So his name is Salisu Yusuf. He released a 30-man list of players to play in a friendly game coming up much in a few weeks against Ecuador and Mexico. So if you listen to many of the radio stations talking sports, they are mostly doing the same thing. Oh, Salisu Yusuf has called up 30 players. And then at the end of it, they list the players. And then they open the phone lines and say, call us on dash, dash, dash number and tell us what you think about this list of players. And then that's it. You tune to radio station B, the same thing. You tune to radio station C, the same thing. In the end, none has offered you something a little bit different from the rest. So they have become all generic. Let me move away from football and give another example that some other persons might be able to relate more with. Rihanna is pregnant for A$AP Rocky. If when you tune to all of the entertainment shows and presenter A, presenter B, everyone say, oh, Rihanna is pregnant for A$AP Rocky. You tune to the next station, Rihanna is pregnant for A$AP Rocky. They are all offering you the same experience. So it becomes repetitive between radio station A and radio station B. Look, Time is finite and precious, and broadcasting is a business of time. Every media house is fighting for a market share. Every presenter is seeking a chunk of the market share. We are seeking for ways to get a presenter to dedicate, a listener, sorry, to dedicate his or her time to listening to us and not another station or another presenter, at least on our beat, so that when it's 3 p.m., people prefer to listen to you and not to some other person, or at least have a preference for us, right? There's an alternative argument to this, but because it's not like it's completely a popularity contest, but for the purpose of this lecture, I'll ignore it and go back to my line of thought and ask these few questions. What would make Mr. Obona or Mrs. Ebere say, it's 4 p.m. Oh, I beg, bring my radio set. I want to listen to the Delight or Taira or Anne or Moses or Delight or Adolphus or Wisdom or Peace. Oh, it's 6:30 p.m. Bring my radio. I don't want to miss this show. What exactly would make someone react that way? Now, Mr. Okoro watched a football match last night, and he knows fully well. In fact, he witnessed Barcelona beat Real Madrid. But what would still make Mr. Okoro want to tune in and listen to Ogasami Wejiya? Tell him the same thing he already knows, that Barcelona beat Real Madrid. He already knows, he watched it. What would make him eager to still want to listen to someone tell him what he already knows? I tell you what it boils down to. What you do with your own piece of information. It boils down to, for instance, Ogasami's meticulously thought out artistry of presentation and the angles that he can develop from that generic story, Barcelona 4, Real Madrid 0. How creative can you get? Would you merely go on air and echo the same thing? Oh, Rihanna is pregnant for A$AP Rocky. Or can you sit down and think, what can I create from this piece of information that everybody has? Make observations. How can I link this with something else? Remember, when I asked the question, what you think the media, what purpose the media exists to serve, part of it was to drive conversation, not just inform, but drive conversation and entertain. So Rihanna is pregnant for A$AP Rocky. Do I just go on air and say, oh, Rihanna is pregnant, her baby bump is so nice, all of those things? Or do I sit down and take my time to be creative, to think about something that I can form out of this generic information? So it is possible that when you now sit down quietly and think, because you want to offer something different, you want to create something that will be unique to you, as it has to do with this generic information, you can, for instance, say, okay, all around me, since Rihanna's pregnancy, everybody's about, oh, couple goals, oh, lovely, she's so beautiful, look at this, look at her baby bump, oh, nice. You can now make an observation around you and say, why is it that Chiamaka's pregnancy for her boyfriend at Rumokoro is followed by, Sofia Akwa, that girl, she's pregnant. Oh, no. And Rihanna's pregnancy for her boyfriend is followed by, oh, couple goals. You see that you've started thinking. Through observation, you've noted the different reactions to the same phenomena. Pregnancy, out of wedlock. In our climb here, it is often frowned at. But why is it different when Rihanna is involved? The same people that will castigate Chiamaka for getting pregnant for her boyfriend are full of cheer and praise and delight for Rihanna for doing the exact same thing. Imagine if you throw this out for conversation on your program. You see now that you've done a little bit more than just telling your listener that Rihanna is pregnant for ASAP Rocky. So at radio station A, B, and C, they got nothing more than Rihanna is pregnant for ASAP Rocky. But at radio station D, you have created something more with the same information by asking society to take a long, hard look at itself and try to figure out why Chiamaka's pregnancy is followed by Tofiakwa and Rihanna's pregnancy is followed by Is it possible that we can treat our sisters and daughters who are pregnant out of wedlock with at least a decent amount of dignity in relation to the way we have treated Rihanna? You see how you've you've opened a new vista of conversation because you're trying to do a little bit more with the same information that is available to everyone. So when when at radio station A, B, and C and shows A, B, and C, it is the same thing. It has been the same thing, repetitive. OAP Ada says, oh, Rihanna is pregnant. OAP Chuk says, oh, Rihanna is pregnant. OAP Naomi says, oh, Rihanna is pregnant. But OAPU does not just say Rihanna is pregnant, but goes ahead to create something more that makes you different and not generic and not a part of the fit or the mold. That results in the fact that the listener electing to listen to you at a particular time has offered them a different experience than they had received elsewhere. Everybody had the same information. Rihanna is pregnant for ASAP Rocky. What did they do with theirs? That's why I chose the topic, and this is where we are. I'll give you a few more examples. There is a guy I work with here on Nigeria Info. His name is Dayo Elushakin, yeah? He discusses politics on Hard Facts. He has his open mic season, has his Dayo rants, even has his Arsenal moments. He's an Arsenal fan. When things are going well for Arsenal, he finds a way of infusing it. All of these things embellish his program and makes it a richer experience. So he does not just come out to state the obvious. Governor Nyesom Wike is running for president. He's looking to pick up the PDP ticket. He does a little bit more. He does some, I call it acrobatics, fused with his personality, which makes the experience of listening to Dio a little bit different than just listening to a political talk show. Now, let me cite a few examples of my own, some of my own experiences. Now, those of you familiar with football would know a certain great Argentine called Sergio Aguero. So some months ago, we got the news that he is going to retire from playing football because of heart complications. I have this information. Other sports broadcast journalists have this information. So while everybody else says Aguero is retiring from football and that's the end, I took time to think. This is an example. I said, what am I going to do with this Aguero's retirement story? Now, Aguero is famous for scoring a last-minute goal in 2012 that gave Manchester City their very first Premier League title. Dramatic. I mean, it's one of the greatest moments in football. So I said to myself, okay, this is what most people will remember this man for. What do I do with it? So I say, on my show, I'm going to inform people that Sergio Aguero has retired due to heart complications. Then I will also link his, well, arguably his greatest moment to a wider conversation. I'll ask, is his last minute goal against Queen's Park Rangers in 2012 the greatest last minute goal of all time? So people would now start to think, you have simulated something. They say, no, it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in 1999. It cannot be Aguero. Somebody else says, no, it's Divock Origi for Liverpool. Somebody else says, no, it's Drogba against Bayern Munich in 2012. Somebody says, no, it cannot be Drogba. It must be Sergio Ramos against Atletico Madrid in 2014. All these things, you see, it's not like I'm particularly interested in winning this battle. But what have I done? I haven't just informed them that Aguero is retiring. I have used the opportunity, one stone to kill many birds. And now my show will generate a lot of conversation. People are driving in their car and they are conversing. No, it can't be Aguero. His last goal is not the best. It's this people in the shops after the day's walks, everywhere there. A little bit more. I have done a little bit more with the same information that Sergio Aguero is retiring due to heart complications. I'll give you another example. Some time ago during Children's Day, everybody knows Children's Day. I say, on a sports show, what can I do with it? A show that comes up by 7 p.m. All right. I say, all right. We'll have a conversation as it has to do with Children's Day on a sports show. What do we do? All the people, multitude of persons that contribute to our shows. Today, we don't want to hear from you. We want to hear from your children within the next hour before it's bedtime, as the following day was a school day. Let them call in, the young stars, tell us what sports they love, who is their idol, do they hope to take it up professionally, and parents got interested. They not only wanted their children to talk about what sports they love, the idea of having their child's voice on radio was something. So they started calling in their numbers. I'll pick up a call and I hear a little child's voice and he says, oh, I play tennis. I love football. I want to be like JJ Okocha. In the end, you tell them things like, well, one of the reasons why JJ Okocha was a fantastic player was that when he was a young man, he was always obedient to his parents. Those kind of things. It looks like it's nothing, but you've created something from something generic, right? There are many more examples to cite. You always keep reinventing yourself and trying to create. Now I talked about the 30-man list released for the Super Eagles. Most of the radio says, everybody says, oh, there are 8 Nigerian Professional Football League players there. It's such a beautiful thing. Let them get exposure. But how many people are thinking that if Rivers United release as they have Ishak Rafiu Kayode, who is the top scorer in the Nigerian Professional Football League, for a friendly match, chances are that it weakens them in their title running. So if you give your best player for a national cause, a friendly of little or no consequence, what happens to your ambition of using this player's services to win the league? Is it really necessary? Is it worth it? People really are not thinking in that direction. So when you bring this conversation now, as we have, it looks as though you're not longer just talking about the list of players released, because you're trying to do a little bit more with the same generic information available to everyone. So how does all of this come about? It means you have to dedicate time to thinkering. You have to think. You have to ponder. In thinking and pondering, in concentrated thought and dedication, ideas, angles, new vistas will open up to you. So you do not treat your job carelessly. Many times people think presenters don't have a lot of work to do. just go and turn on the mic, then is it not talking? Just talk. No. But if you come across a presenter that knows his onions, at the time he arrives at the studio or she arrives at the studio to speak, it's all about execution. They are not thinking on the spot what to do for their program. They are coming to execute what has been long thought out. There can be on the spot improvisations. You can get new ideas on the spot, but basically the spine of your show is already ready for those that take their job serious and have a professional attitude to it. So once your mindset is to always stay concentrated on having the best show possible every single time, once your mindset is to think and ponder about how to make your show different by infusing your creativity and personality into what you do, new ideas, angles, vistas will open up to you that will not open up to someone who pays less attention than you do. So you always have to be in there. When you come across a presenter that actually know their onion, person actually deserves quite a lot of respect because they can prep for 8 hours or more for a 30 minutes worth of talking time on radio. In fact, every time they are walking, they want to go from Rumosi to GRA to see someone. As they are driving or they are in the cab, public or the more private ones like the cab hailing guys, they're always thinking. They're not just passing through the streets. They're absorbing the streets and thinking of what to create out of it. They are not just receiving the information. They are thinking, what can I create from this information? Because if you don't, you will become one of the mass-produced set of broadcasters who go on air and say the same thing. So listening to you will not offer a different experience to the listener because he's found the same thing as found while listening to you some other place. So back to the original topic, which simply puts, everybody has the same information. What are you doing with yours? The first part of this we've established. In this age and time, proliferation of mass media, the internet, the information is out there. Before you, the presenter, even gets a hold of it, the listener that you're scheduled to talk to already knows. So what are you doing with it? What will make listening to you talk about this same information that most people have a worthwhile experience? Thank you very much. I hope that it's been a useful lecture, quote and unquote, a useful experience. I now look forward to engaging more with you, especially if there are more things that you may require of me on the foregoing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. I'm sure all of us are very grateful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insights. And we are very happy and we will make great use of the information that you have given to us. If anyone has questions, you're welcome to ask them. Please raise your hand. Okay, Itari, you may speak.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Itari.
Okay. My question goes first. What if after you getting your generic information and you brainstorm and you brought the idea to be shared to your listener, and maybe a caller said, such thing is not important. We are not supposed to discuss such things. What do you say after brainstorming to make sure your idea is different and your listeners say, it is not important. We are not supposed to be discussing such things. So what do you do at that point? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Itari. It's a very, very interesting question you've asked. If I take you back to when I was explaining something about looking for market share, everyone hunting for a larger percentage of the listeners available, I got to a point where I said that there was a counter argument, which for the purpose of my current line of thought, I'd like to leave out, which is, sometimes broadcasting isn't really a popularity contest, right? Sometimes you get to the point where you understand that you're not necessarily there to do the bidding of someone or to please someone particularly, right? I have encountered this kind of situation that you've painted. And because naturally I'm a polite person, ethics of broadcast journalism requires that you stay in control and you stay polite at all times. On a few occasions, I've said to the person, I said, well, I am so sorry that on this day, I have not been able to meet up with your standards of what should be talked about. And maybe some other day I may be able to achieve that. I thank them still for their contribution. And then you say, we'll now, continue with those who find this conversation worthy of being talked about. So what I'm saying in essence is, even objectively speaking, the best in the business also cannot at all times satisfy every single listener. But if you get your act right, I tell you what, for every one person who thinks your conversation isn't worth having, there are 5 who think that it is worth having. If you do your homework well and cover all of the bases. Now, it's also important that you come to the understanding that you're not on radio, particularly to ram down your own point of view on a given subject. So the way to balance things out is to do 2 things while offering driving the narrative in a certain direction. Also do your best to find the arguments that counter that line of thought and also present it. And also give room for people who have a different viewpoint to have their own say. That way, it balances and improves the conversation. So the listener does not then feel that this conversation is closed to them, that since they do not believe in the line of thought of the presenter or the resource person or some other contributors, that they cannot have a say. No, always create room for people who feel differently to politely and in a civil manner share the reasons why they disagree with a certain line of thought. We do it all the time. So once you keep the conversation open and you make it understood that you're not here to ram down a narrative or let your passions overcome you, that this is the way things are going. I think this is the way your resource person says, I think this is the way you should go. But make sure that the listener is comfortable to, in a very civil manner, express their dissatisfaction with the foregoing, in the sense that I don't agree with this, so and so and so. I don't think that devaluing the naira will reduce inflation. because so and so will happen, then you say, oh, thank you very much for your contribution. So I've said two things in response to you, Itari. First, you cannot please everyone. Chances are that for every one person that does not feel the conversation is not worth it, there are 3 or 4 others who think it is worth it. As long as you've done your homework right and you're convinced about the righteousness of your line of thought, if I should put it that way, carry on with those who are interested. It's not always a popularity contest, and you cannot please the whole world. Secondly, always leave room in the conversations you're having for dissenting opinions to also come to the fore. That way, everybody feels comfortable and understands that it is a conversation, not a sermon. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Okay, Moses Francis, you may unmute your mic and ask your question.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir, for the great lecture. Sure.
Oh, welcome, Moses.
Okay, sir. So, some presenters often say, good morning, everyone, or Port Harcourt. So my question is, during a conversation on air, are we talking to a specific person, that is one person, or everybody at the same time? Thank you, sir.
All right, Moses, thank you very much for your question. Common sense opinion, yeah, chances are that you're not speaking to one person, you're speaking to a multitude of persons. But there is a certain idea as part of the ethics and what you're basically taught, or you get to learn over time in your journey into broadcasting, that radio tries to form a bond on a personal basis with the listener, not listeners. You know that hundreds of people are listening to you at a point in time. But they say a tree does not make a forest, but a forest is nothing but individual trees bunched up together, right? So even though it's 100 people, everybody's experience is peculiar to them. So people feel more personally connected to the radio's house or the presenter if you speak to them in ways that suggest that your words are directed towards them and is not to a multitude of persons. So when you say, for instance, when you say good evening, how are you? It feels different to the listener than when you say good morning, how are you all? It's a little less personalized. So it's like a trick. It's you try to make the listener feel that in fact your entire exercise is directed towards their satisfaction and pleasure as individuals, not as a crowd. So we're often told, and it makes quite a lot of sense to address the listener as a listener and not listeners, because the effect it has is that it makes them feel more connected. Oh, they are here for me. They are talking to me, not they are talking to us. Yeah, so that's it, Moses.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, Umokoro, you're next. You may unmute your mic and speak.
Good morning, sir. You spoke extensively on, you spoke on being creative. My question is, are there laid down presets or indexes for brainstorming and being creative in the industry?
Well, simple answer, Umokoro, is keep your mind open, stay alert. Develop a mindset that is open to receiving stimulus and inspiration. It all starts with the mind. I get it. People are gifted differently. That's a fact. Arguing against it is just it's just for argument's sake. People have different bandwidth. Everybody can't be the same, but hard work oftentimes is a leveler. Yeah. So when you develop the attitude and mindset that seeks to create more from less, chances increase by a mile that you actually start seeing what you normally wouldn't have seen if you had folded your arms in comfort, saying, I will just go on air and tell them that Rihanna is pregnant for ASAP Rocky. That's the easy way out. But we all have intuition and intellect, brains, we can think. So when you go to the gym and you start lifting weights, your muscles start to respond. It starts to get bigger. You work on your abs, then the abs start, your chest, everything in time through constant development. So when you start exercising your mind to constantly be in that state of trying to see more than is apparent, inspiration will come to you. Even the Bible says, seek and ye shall find, for those who are the Christian faithfuls. Once you start seeking, chances increase that you will find. For the very fact that chances are far less that you would find if you keep your arms folded and your legs crossed and you're comfortable with the generic information. No, once you get into that frame where your mind is constantly open, where the desire is to see more than there is, once you constantly give concentrated thought to something, what can I create from this? What can I create from this? Answers will start arriving. That's for sure, Umokoro.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, Fabian Joyful, you may unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Fabian. It looks like you're having network issues.
Good
morning.
I think
sir. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Fabian.
Fabian, I think you're having network issues, so you can mute your mic. I've seen that you sent your question into the chat, so I'll read it out, and then our lecturer will answer it. Your message says, "Good morning, sir. What has helped you in transitioning or transiting from different areas of broadcasting over the years in terms of getting the attention of your listeners?" I'll take that again. Good morning. Oh, you got it. Is that fine?
But yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
All right.
I'm a little bit afraid, Fabian, that there may not be a very straightforward answer to this, because everyone is different. Interests vary. The only thing I can say is that if you become good with the art of broadcasting, chances are that when you're offered a different task, you would not fail completely. Let me put it that way. What I mean is this: if you are good at broadcasting, you, for instance, may have a preference for entertainment where Davido and Wizkid and Who is Topping the Charts are your thing. At the same time, if there's an emergency situation where the newscaster becomes unavailable and the news has to go, because you are good with broadcasting, and yes, this is also important, if you have been observant over time, if you're the type that, you don't just finish your show and go home or switch off, from time to time, you get to listen to a variety of things. When called upon, you will now summon that part of you that is good with broadcasting and say, how can I effect this in the news, in newscasting, especially when last month I had listened to Andrew do the news. I listened to Mr. James take the news, So chances will be that you will not fail completely. Let me not go as far as saying that you will do it the same as someone who has had that experience over time. In fact, that's where they major in, and that's where their core interests lie. But because you are good at the general thing, art of broadcasting, you chances are improved that you can apply it to different areas. It comes with knowing in a broad sense the broadcasting, and then being able to apply it, and then I'm a sports journalist. If I have a thing for music, then I'd like to listen to Cassie George, maybe on Beat FM or Ray on Cool FM, and hear what's happening. I want to hear what Wizkid is doing, what Davido is doing. I want to listen to Chooks the Spaceman. I want to listen to all this. I don't like sports. Okay, I like sports to a reasonable extent, but I want to listen to Oga Sami and the Godfathers. Over time, you some residual knowledge is left in you as to how this can be done. So when called upon, you may not fail completely, because in the very first instance, you have developed well as a broadcaster. For me personally, I'm not a jack of all trades, not by any means. I'm just able to do more within the space of where I have interests in. It's not like you take me from one point and put me somewhere else and I become just as good. No, if at all I am good anyway. No, no, that's not what I'm saying. But everything is possible when you become a broadcaster and you're thrown into a place. When you become a good broadcaster and you're thrown into a place where you may have to make adjustments, your chances are better. Chances are better that you will not fail so hard, because you just have to metamorphose into the form that you needed to metamorphose into. And over time, with dedication, you can also learn how to do that thing, that in case it becomes a permanent fixture. Yeah, that's I hope, Fabian, it makes any sense.
Okay, I think Fabian is having issues with his mic or network. Our very last question is from Peace. So Peace, you may unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning once again, Mr. Kosi. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Peace. Good morning.
All right. Please, I want to ask as regards the lecture, because most times, some of us, we do see where a broadcaster tries to either spice up a conversation or make it more interesting. But at the end of it all, we could see such probably sparking up controversy, which could possibly lead to misunderstanding or inappropriate decoding of information from a listener. For instance, we look at the Poscos and Frank Lampard controversy or saga of who was a better midfielder for the respective sides. So you could see that such conversation may bring up controversy. Some of the fans will say maybe you're trying to take side as a broadcaster, maybe you bringing up your own view of the case. So in such case, how do you strike a balance in trying to spice up an information and at the same time trying to make it in such a way neutral? So thank you.
All right, Peace. Thank you very much. The answer can be found within the question, the way you frame the question, neutrality. There's an art to this thing. I have my own opinion about Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard, but I'm fully aware that what I'm going on radio to do is not to tell people what I think about Gerrard or Lampard. It is to create a forum where they can debate Gerrard and Lampard with me as an umpire or as a moderator whose opinion is not so significant. So I can reel out the facts. I can present even my own feelings as part of a general argument in favor of somebody and put it out there for the debate. But the minute I go on and make my bias obvious and I start doubling down on it, it becomes clear that I'm a partial umpire and the referee cannot have sides, and you lose credibility. You lose credibility because anything you now say will be viewed from the prism of well, we know this guy, na so him be, in like Man U, in like Chelsea, so nothing for us now go ever good. But if you have created a style that allows people to have faith in you as an objective moderator, then for instance, the debate about greatest of all time in tennis, is it Novak Djokovic? Is it Rafa? I'm there to present the arguments for and against. I can, for instance, say, how do you judge to what indices? What are the parameters for judgment? Is it head to head, the number of times they faced each other and who has come out tops? Is it number of Grand Slams? Is it style and effect, generally speaking, on tennis beyond the court? You know, and you put it out there. Then debate starts. Always leave room, as I said, for different opinions to be aired in a polite and civil manner. It improves the confidence that can be a village square where all man would have a chance to say what they think. I am just a moderator. I'm just an umpire. Even when people are making arguments in favor of what I really think about the conversation, it is incumbent on me to try to bring to the fore. But it doesn't matter that this person is arguing in favor of the guy that I prefer in the argument. But as a broadcaster who wants to moderate as objectively as possible, I have to even present things that would go against my beliefs deep down. I say, but how is it not possible we view it alternatively as this? Just create many vistas, offer people a wide range of things to think with and then contribute with. So always try to be an impartial moderator. Be objective. It helps your credibility. It's so important that once you lose it, if your reputation becomes that you're beholden to a sportsman, for instance, or a football club, or it's very difficult to recover. So start from the very, very beginning to create a persona that comes across at least as an objective and moderate, umpire in driving conversations. Yeah. So that's it, peace.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, brother.
Okay, it looks like we have another question from Daddy Guardian. So you may unmute your mic and speak.
Morning, sir.
Hi. Hi.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How did you build the skill of always speaking so engagingly in front of critics against your show or presentation?
Temperament, those that are natural, and then those that you acquire over time. Okay. I have learned to be patient and humble. So assuming a humble attitude helps you not to feel offended when a counter view to your narrative is presented. If you're not humble enough to understand that someone else has a right to disagree with the foregoing on your show, then you have a lot of problems. So I receive opposition with grace. And I believe that, especially when it's a conversation with words and on radio, if you believe in something and someone else disagrees, it's all about who can provide the greater amount of logic to drive home their point. So I'm humble enough to accept that someone disagrees with my viewpoint. That's okay, that's fine. Especially if they are civil and polite about it, as they should be, as you should be as well. So humility helps me get to that point. And then I have confidence that because I have done my homework to think things through before taking a position, I can defend it without violence or loud arguments or rancor. So I come out and say, "Oh, I was at Rumokoro yesterday, and it rained." Someone comes in and I lie. You know, rain for Rumokoro yesterday. This one. Well, I can simply say, I have the weather forecast from yesterday. Those that were around Rumokoro, can you please confirm whether or not it rained yesterday? You know, why will I say, na lie? Why are you saying na lie? It no be lie, na lie, no be lie, na lie. No, I can drive home my point. Or worst case scenario, when the person becomes uncouth and rude, you're not even allowed to encourage disrespect. You either let the person go without showing that you're taking everything personal, or allow them to exhaust their foolishness and be on their way, and you go. Just handle it with humility and grace, and then you keep going. Always be open to accommodate a differing viewpoint, because people are not bound to see things the way you do. It's even more interesting when they don't agree with you. If we're all come here, we're singing the same hymn from the same hymn book, it becomes monotonous. But imagine if we are constructively disagreeing with each other and throwing logical points up and down. What an exercise it would then be, you know? So that's how I'm looking at it, Guardian.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have one more hand up from Mr. Mike. Mike, you may unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right, thank you, Tiara. Good morning, Mr. Kosi. Thank you
Morning,
again
Mike.
for this incisive lecture. great lessons to learn here. One of my major takeaway from your lessons this morning, or your lecture this morning, it's the fact that you could every presenter comes with his own style, so that you could have a market share of your listenership. So my question would simply be, where do you draw the line when you come with your style without offending the sensibility of your listening audience? How do you draw the line? Okay, you got the information that everybody have, but you tend to want to present it in a unique way. How do you do that without necessarily offending the sensibility of your listeners? I'm asking this against the backdrop that there are some OAPs that have couched the term controversial because of some of the positions or their viewpoints that they express on air. So how do you draw a distinguishing line on that? Thank you.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Mike, excuse me, we live in very interesting times, to be honest. Absurdity sells, and sells really well, okay? So sometimes people court controversy because it is the quick path to fame, or if they're not famous, at least they become notorious, right? So some broadcasters artificially engineer these things so that when they start trending on social media, so publicists will tell you that bad publicity is still publicity. So they try to create this artificial controversy, always turn out to be controversial because they feel it sells. Personally, I don't believe in that, but I have to say that if you look at the way the world works today, whether right or wrong, that's really what sells. All kinds of absurd people shoot quickly to fame, and even maybe the resultant wealth, if you classify wealth as money. So how do you have conversations? A lot of wisdom, because when you turn on the mic to speak, you have an enormous amount of power in your hands. So you must realize the power you wield and choose to use it for good. I take you back to 1994 in Rwanda. It's a very popular story. The genocide was in part encouraged by a radio broadcast that described the Tutsis as cockroaches that must be crushed. Some of the presenters that played a role in that have been facing charges at the International Criminal Court. So there are very sensitive terrains in broadcasting, especially those who have to deal with social politics, where they have to touch on very sensitive things like religion and the politics of a place. So that is where wisdom comes in. Even the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, the NBC, have set out rules that should guide broadcasters so that certain things are not touched because of the perceived consequence. Religion, politics, those kind of things, they are very, very murky water. So whoever must choose to go there must, apply a lot of wisdom. There is this guy that used to work, he worked at AIT and, channels before he became part of the aides to the federal government, Ajuri Ngelale. I liked him so much. And I was so lucky that our paths got to cross and we found some kind of mutual friendship. I liked him so much that in the old days, I don't have a lot of money, but I'll buy fuel and pump the generator. So I'll listen to Ajuri. What does he do? He takes no personal stand, and he seeks not to preach sermons to the people. He only comes armed with facts. So when you come and you say that, oh, when I was governor of Rivers State, all the youths were employed, what does he do? He does not go to tell you that, oh, that's not true, it's a lie. He simply says, well, according to data from the National Bureau of Statistics from the year 2000 and this to that, when you were sitting governor, 60% of Port Harcourt youths are recorded as unemployed. You see, it's not him saying his opinion. He's making the obvious clear with a reference to facts from the National Bureau of Statistics, the nation's own data gathering agency. So that's how Ajiri would do it. Another presenter will say, no, lie. No be Port Harcourt we dey. How many people get job? You know, then it now becomes a controversial issue. But if he had presented it differently, it's not. So something has happened in Sokoto yesterday. I'm a presenter in Sokoto. I know that it's going to be extremely difficult or near impossible for me to turn on the radio and say, oh, it's not good to kill people. Why are you killing for religion? This, that. No, the people are not mature enough. So wisdom allows you to recognize that. But what if I start my show with a song? Let's say Lucky Dube, Respect, or Bob Marley's One Love. One love, one heart, let's get together. And Lucky Dube's Respect that says, irrespective of race, religion, opinion, let's love each other, or together as one. Hey, you Rasta man, hey, you we got to come together as one. Do you see that I am indirectly talking to the people about a sensitive subject without necessarily preaching directly to them in such a way that would trigger their immaturity and that could have series of repercussions? So without saying, while in Sokoto as a broadcaster, oh, what you've done is terrible. Who the hell are you to kill for God? Those kind of things. No. I may just carry on and end my show by saying a line, say, I think the world will be a better place if we all love each other as we love ourselves. Thank you very much for being a part of today's show. See? So skill and wisdom, then you navigate the murky waters of very sensitive subjects. I'm not sure I have addressed your questions the way you may have wanted me to, but at least I've said that some OAPs, presenters, and people in the media space court controversy. They deliberately want to be controversial because it leads to fame, popularity, or at least makes one notorious. Either way, their names are known. I don't function that way. I believe in other sets of principles. But if you are armed with the requisite wisdom and skill, you can fare well while navigating very, very touchy terrains. And there is wisdom also in letting some things lie for the time being. So maybe later on when tempers are down, they can be talked about. All of these things are skills because we live in a very immature society. People can't take some things. People are barbarian. Some are very, very interesting things clothed as human beings walking around. So you believe as I do not believe, I believe as you do not believe. Those kind of things make it a very, unique space to operate in, especially if you're handling certain kinds of programs. So you have to be tactful, have to have a lot of wisdom and skill and know which battles to pick. So Mike, I hope that if at all, at least even if in a small way, I have supplied possible answer to your question.
Yes, actually, Mr. Kosi, I quite appreciate the angle from where you approached it. The truth is, it's almost becoming a trend that most presenters want to ride on controversy. And I asked this question against the backdrop that there is a particular presenter in mind. I think is quite popular and known as Daddy Freeze. That he's so controversial. But my ground around it is the media should be responsible. The media sets the pace or the agenda for society. And if a media house tends to, condone, such excesses in terms of controversy to the point of, religion, like you said, religion, ethnicity, these are flaming things that would set a nation on fire. One would have expected the media house to want to put the house rule in place and, caution a presenter that is, trying to flout the rules. But however, I appreciate your viewpoints, and it's a learning call for us. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Mike, if I might just touch on the last few things you said. Good observation. You have obviously a moral prism from which you're looking at the media. But I also want to explain a few things. I'm not arguing against, in fact, I believe so much our thoughts are quite similar, not exactly the same, but quite similar on this. But you see, sometimes it's about demand and supply, okay? Sometimes these media houses, think about it, takes a lot of money to run a media house, let alone the ones that are, across many states, like Mega Electrics or ones I work for, AIM Group. So if they might find it difficult to discourage a presenter like Daddy Freeze, especially if he's operating in where you call borderline. He's not expressly flouting the rules. He's just borderline, okay? Now, how do radio stations make money? Many times it's all about, look, there are many products out there looking for people to buy. How you make people know that your product exists or to keep reminding them that it exists is to advertise. So when advertisers are looking for where to take adverts to, they look for the radio station that has the requisite amount of listenership to get across their message to the largest amount of people within their limited budget, right? So if the way that the freeze operates draws people to listen to his program, it means that people actually, the data of listenership, the ratings increase for the radio station, which makes it an advert destination, right? So the radio station does not shut him down because first and foremost, they think he's operating borderline, he's not flouting the rules, and he's actually the reason why they are making money to be able to pay their other staff, other members of staff, put diesel in the generators, maintain the transmitter and the equipment. So, like I said, I'm not disputing your moral view of things. As I said, our thoughts are quite similar, but I just want to offer you a certain perspective. That balance I'm talking about now, you see, I'm bringing it, even though I agree with you to a reasonable extent. I'm giving you the chance to look at things from a different perspective. If they let Freeze go, and Freeze goes to another station and starts supplying what the society wants to consume, advertisers will leave where Freeze used to work before and follow him there because their own interest is to meet as much people as possible by way of advertising their product or service. This is an aside, but I just thought I'd offer you that so that you put it in view while making your wider considerations about these matters.
Thank you, Mr. Kosi. Thank you. It's quite noted and appreciated. Thank you.
Welcome, Mike. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kosi. One of the students sent me a personal message and wanted me to please ask you if you could please share your contact information, if there's anywhere we can reach you, social media or email or anything you're comfortable with, please.
Oh yes, I will. I'll leave my social media. I'm active on Twitter. I put pictures at times on Instagram, and you can always send me an email. I'll leave that with you, class captain, if it's okay, and then anyone who wants to get across to me can.
Thank you so much. I believe this brings us to the very end. Thank you once again, Mr. Kosi, for your time and for sharing your knowledge. And we hope that you felt welcomed and that you enjoyed being with us today. And we hope to have you back soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As I said, it's been an interaction in the course of considering what in the world I was going to say on this day. I also learned a few things myself and had a few, scanty thoughts condensed in a more solid form. In the course of the feedback, after I had given that lengthy talk, I have also been offered the chance to contemplate on, very different things. I am a student as well. I am learning. Believe it or not, I'm not so old in the industry. It's been about trying to learn as much as possible to be as good as I can possibly be, and have an attitude that keep improving. So it's not a teacher versus no. Is us all coming together to share experience, and I must say that um, a man who I have a lot of respect for. I mean, the less said, even the better, because what's been doing justice, or Ogasami Waging, offering me the chance to do this today is something I immensely appreciate, and I thank you all. I thank you all, really, every single person. Adolphus, Mike, Delight, Wisdom, Peace, Umokoro, Moses, Mike, Guardian, everyone here. I'm sorry, those that I haven't mentioned in person, for having me. The pleasure is all mine. Believe it or not, it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. We're very, very grateful. Have an amazing rest of the day.
Oh, yes. Thank you. And all of you too.
Of the lecture, but please, you guys should not leave yet. We have 2 messages